As Rand and Mat set out from Stone of Tyr to Roidian, the third Taveran, Perrin was heading the other way to his native Two Rivers to protect his friends from the Children of the Light and to restore peace to his native land. Yet the question remained, why had the White Cloaks started causing trouble in the region to begin with? In this latest episode on Wheel of Time, we'll tell you the story of the Children of the Light's rise, their purpose in the Two Rivers, and what a certain dark friend had to do with it. Additionally, we will take a closer look at how a simple blacksmith's apprentice acquired the lofty title of Lord Goldeneyes. The Children of the Light were originally formed in 1021 FY by Lothair Mantelar when the War of the 100 Years broke out and chaos spread throughout the Westlands. This organization was formed to track down Dark Friends, using methods recommended in the book The Way of the Light, written by Mantelar himself. As early as 1111 FY, they became a militarized force, albeit not a particularly influential one. The situation changed in 306 NE, when unrest broke out in Altara. The Amelin seat, Serenial Tar, came to settle the disputes, but the Children of the Light prevented her from doing so, killing her and hanging her body for public viewing. They did this because, according to their professed ideology, all who had the ability to touch the true source were Dark Friends. Over the following years, as the importance of the White Tower declined, the White Cloaks' influence grew, but for most of the new era, the Children had no permanent headquarters. This changed only in the 930s, when they made a deal with the King of Amadisia and erected the Fortress of the Light in the kingdom's capital, Amador. Their influence and political power grew to such an extent that Surrender Palace, the royal seat, was moved outside Amador, and the king himself was left only as a representative figure. The peak of the Children of the Light's power came during Pedron Niall's period in top office. Mirandian wanted to extend his organization's direct influence into neighboring Altara, contributing to the outbreak of the so-called White Cloak War in 957 NE. The Kingdom of Altara tried to resist the onslaught with a strategy called the Altaran Noon, which was designed to hinder the kingdom's occupation. However, the Altarans were ultimately unable to defend their country and turned to Mirandi and Ilian for help. Subsequently, Matin Stepanos Denbalgar joined the war against the Children of the Light, but Pedron Niall's military genius was too much for Iliana forces, and they were unable to stop them. Even the Ilian king himself was taken prisoner during the Battle of Soramain. After 2 years of fighting, a white peace was made. It was during this war that Tamal Thor rose to prominence in King Matin's army, even being accepted into the elite force, the Iliana Companions. Joining the informal ranks of the 5 great captains, Pedron Niall was one of the top leaders of the Grand Coalition army. But after the Isle War ended, he did not give up his aspirations to unite the Westlands. His ambition was motivated by the upcoming Tarman Gaidon. He wanted to lead the forces of light to victory in the last battle. Over the following years, he tried to extend the White Cloaks' influence into neighbouring Altara, Tarabon and Gildan, but to no avail. In 998 NE, he wanted to capitalize on public discontent in Andor for the Queen's alliance with Aes Sedai, but this attempt also proved fruitless. Unable to cunningly take control of the existing kingdoms, he wanted to seize Almoth Plain, the territories of the former Kingdom of Almoth, in order to subjugate Ared Doman and Tarabon from there. To accomplish this, he sent a legion led by Geofram Bornhold, but at Falm this plan was thwarted. Shortly thereafter, Padan Fain appeared to the Lord Captain Commander, informing him that the western region of Andor, called Two Rivers, harboured Dark Friends. Trusting the merchant, he sent Dane Bornhold at the head of 500 men-at-arms, along with Jarrat Biar, the sole survivor from Falm, and Padan Fain, who would serve as a guide. Before discussing the events of Two Rivers, we must first explain the organizational structure of the Children of the Light. At the top of the command pyramid was the Lord Captain Commander. He was elected for life by and from the Lord Captains, who were second in command under the commander. Lower in the hierarchy were the Senior Lieutenant, Lieutenant and Under-Lieutenant. The White Cloaks' largest military unit was the Legion, composed of 2,000 men-at-arms. The Legion was always commanded by the Lord Captain, and only he could lead it. A smaller unit was commanded by the 100-man, but it did not always necessarily consist of 100 men. Below the 100-man in the hierarchy were the bannerman, second bannerman, squadman, second squadman, and file leaders. In addition to the military, the Children of the Light also consisted of the Hand of the Light, a sort of combination of a police force and an inquisition. The Hand was headed by the High Inquisitor, who answered only to the Lord Captain Commander. The entire Hand of the Light operated independently of the Council of the Anointed, a council making all major decisions chaired by the Lord Captain Commander. Like many other rulers, the leader of the White Cloaks also had his own spy network, but here the Spy Master was unknown to anyone but the organization's leader. During Pedron Nile's reign, the official Spy Master was Abdel Amerna, while it was actually Pedron's secretary Seban Balwa. Having already explained the worldview and morality of the Children of the Light, we can now move on to how they found themselves and what they were doing in Two Rivers. After the attack on Emond's field during Beltane in 998 NE, Fain pursued Moiraine and the three Taverin. Being equipped by the Dark One with the ability to unerringly find the people he was supposed to find, he followed them to Shadar-Logoth, where he was possessed by the spirit of Mordeth. But this spirit was unable to take control of the merchant, only causing the soul of King Aradol's advisor to merge with that of Fain. This caused him to slowly depart from the Dark Friend's path and take his own, similar to the one taken 2,000 years ago by the people of the later Shadar-Logoth. Wanting to work to the detriment of both the Dragon Reborn and the Dark One, he came to Nile Pedron, introducing himself as Ordaith, and persuaded him to intervene in the Two Rivers. Once there, he began harassing the local population. Thus, Padan Fain wanted to lure Rand back to his hometown to kill him, but instead of the dragon, his friend Perrin arrived. As the Isle broke into the Stone of Tyr and Rand al'Thor claimed Kalandor, officially declaring himself the Dragon Reborn, Perrin was in Tel'aran'rhiod trying to free File from the trap that had been set for Moiraine Sedai by Black Ajah. After a successful escapade in the World of Dreams, he joined the rest of his friends in the fortress with the Hunter of the Horn, where he stayed for several days. During his stay at the fortress, he became acquainted with Berelain Sir Paindrag Perrin, the ruler of the small kingdom of Mayenne, located east of Tyr. The First of Mayenne wanted to obtain certain privileges for herself and her country, buying the favour of the Lord Dragon through his companion. Not being entirely sure of Berelain's intentions, he decided to stay away from the Mayenne ruler. The Pattern of Ages gave two reasons for doing so. The first was news that the Children of the Light had appeared in Two Rivers, making life difficult for the region's residents in their zealous search for Dark Friends. The second was the strange and dangerous events that occurred in the Stone of Tyr, an attack by Trollocs and the so-called Bubbles of Evil. Bubbles of Evil, according to Moiraine, was a Dark One evil that infiltrated the Pattern, causing unnatural and often fatal events. Perrin wanted to get to his home region as soon as possible, so he asked Loial to help walk the ways to the Two Rivers. Aibara was also joined by three Aiel: Gaul of Sharad Isle, whom they met in pursuit of Rand after a clash in Falm, Bane of Sharad Isle, and Chiad of Goshen Isle. Fael convinced the Ogier to take her with him, thus opposing Perrin's decision to keep her out of danger. After reaching Two Rivers, the group familiarized itself with the situation prevailing in the region. They learned about the White Cloaks, stalking everyone around them, and about the Trollocs, who killed Perrin's family. The shadowspawn had come here because of Fain, but not to help him. The Dark One, knowing of his servant's betrayal, decided to send the Slayer to get the traitor. The Slayer was a character created from the merging of two individuals. These two personalities, living in one body, coexisted with each other and knew about the other. The characters used to create the Slayer were Issam Mandragoran, Lan's nephew, who was most likely killed during the invasion of Malkia, and Luke Mantir, who was most likely captured by the Trollocs in the Blight. Moreover, the Slayer could move between the real world and Tel'aran'rhiod, taking different forms in both dimensions. In addition, Perrin learned from Marin and Branelvir that Children of the Light had captured the blacksmith Master Luhan and his family, and the Calthon family, with only Tamalthor and Abel Calthon having managed to hide somewhere. Aibara wanted to immediately set out to find the men who would help him set free the prisoners, but File forbade him, wanting him to be able to mourn his loved ones first. Soon after, Maharramli took Perrin and his companions to the old sick house, where it turned out that 2 Aes Sedai, Verin Mathwin and Alana Mosvani, were hiding. After a while, Tam and Abel also entered the building. On their way to the White Cloaks camp, they visited several farms, whose residents were themselves trying to defend themselves from the constant shadowspawn attacks. This was the advice they received from a certain Lord Luke, one of the Hunters of the Horn, and unknown to others, Slayer himself. Perrin suggested they go to Emond's field, which would be much safer. Being Taverin, Perrin attracted several residents from those farms, who grabbed their weapons and set off with him, Tam and Abel, with the goal of rescuing the Luhans and Calthons. After freeing the 2 families, Perrin sent them to Emond's field, staying outside the village with volunteers gathered from the surrounding farms. Realizing the danger the Trollocs presented, he decided to rid the 2 rivers of them. Not wanting to endanger the people who chose to stay with him, he began a campaign of harassment against the minor troops from the Blight. For 6 consecutive days, he set up ambushes on the shadowspawn, allowing all the people in the area to take refuge among the residents of his home settlement. On the 6th day of this guerrilla campaign, File arrived accompanied by Lord Luke, informing him that the surrounding farms were empty and all the people had taken refuge in the settlement, preparing it for defense. Soon after, heading to the site of another ambush, they were surprised by a fist of Trollocs. Looking for a safe place to escape, they came upon a group of Tuatha'an. They were the same ones who had helped Perrin and Egwene the year before during their escape from Shadar Logoth to Caemlyn. The Tinkers were not convinced by Aybara to go to safety, staying true to the Way of the Leaf. Staying with old friends for the night, he noticed that a waygate had been opened and that more shadowspawn replacements were arriving from them. He wanted to close the entrance to the ways on his own, but File convinced him to return to the settlement, so that Aes Sedai could heal him completely. After returning to Emond's field, Perrin began to organize the defense of the village. On his orders, the trees, growing to 500 paces around the village, were cut down to allow the residents, armed with longbows, a clear field for firing. Sharpened piles were driven into the ground, surrounding the entire settlement, making it difficult for the attackers to break in. Many residents turned their farming tools into polearms, while Master Luhan, the Aes Sedai, and their warders constructed 6 catapults, increasing the settlement's defensive capabilities. Many residents wanted to help defend their homes regardless of age. Aybara found a task for everyone. The youngest were to provide arrows for the 200 archers who would fire from the roofs of the houses, while those who were able to fight were among the combatants. Not wanting to endanger the women, who also wanted to help, Perrin assigned them the task of protecting the children and the Tuatha'an, who arrived after their encampment was attacked by Trollocs. One of them, named Aram, asked Perrin to teach him how to use a sword. Aybara sent him to Tamel Thor. For breaking the Way of the Leaf, his grandparents disowned him, placing him in Perrin's care. While Perrin was still resting after treatment received from Alana Sedai, Loial and Gaul left Emond's field, intending to close the waygate. While they were on their way, an attack of 500 Trollocs fell on the village, striking from the west. They were no match for the archers of 2 Rivers, who easily repelled the attack. However, the Shadowspawn did not want to conquer the settlement, but only to test its defensive capabilities. Shortly after the attack, Dain Bornhold arrived in the village at the head of 400 Children of the Light, wanting to arrest Perrin, but Bran Al'Vir and the rest of the residents blocked their way. Golden Eyes suggested that they stay in the village, as there was a risk that they would be ambushed by the Trollocs when they returned to camp. Bornhold agreed, entering the center of the village, where the women and Tuatha'an were located. For the next 7 days, the residents of Emond's Field repelled successive Shadowspawn attacks without difficulty, but their supplies dwindled with each day and each attack. In the evening, on the 7th day of the battle, a mortally wounded man arrived at the settlement. Perrin met with him, but he died in Aybara's arms, saying only, "We are coming." Around the same time, Gaul and Loial returned, reporting that the waygate had been closed 4 days earlier, and the influx of Shadowspawn had been halted. He also delivered the less pleasant news that some 2,000 Trollocs and 50 Myrddraals were heading towards the settlement. Just before the battle, Dain Bornhold left the settlement and headed to his camp, but Golden Eyes convinced him to change his mind by making a deal with him. If the White Cloaks would stay and help in the battle, Perrin would surrender himself voluntarily to them. Dain agreed and remained in Emond's Field. However, Fael left the village and was sent by Ibara to Kamlin to inform the queen of what was happening at the other end of her kingdom. The Hunter of the Horn had agreed to leave, but only as Perrin's wife. The Ta'veren agreed and married her, eventually learning that the girl's real name was Serene Ni Basher. After the ceremony, she left for the north, accompanied by Bane. Shortly after their departure, shadowspawn attacked the settlement from the north and south. The attackers divided their forces equally, 1,000 cloaks and 25 Midrals from both sides. Most of the defenders' forces moved to defend the village from direct attack. The south side of Emond's Field was defended by Tamel Thor with Alana's help, and the north side by Bran Al'Vir. Perrin and Verin Sedai took their place here. A small force was deployed to the east, under the command of Jon Thane and Samel Craw. The west of the settlement was under the command of Abel Cawthon. The shadowspawn attacked at the same time. Arrows rained down on the attackers, but their numbers forced the defenders to retreat from their fortifications toward the center of the village. Seeing that the defenders' lines might break, and that Bornhold's men were not moving to fight, the women of Emond's Field, like the wives of Manatherin warriors of old, rushed into battle, preventing the ranks from breaking. As the women moved into battle, archers from the Devon Ride arrived from the south, and immediately began firing at the Trollocs' rear. Right after them, a group from Watch Hill, led by Fael, arrived from the north, showering shadowspawn with their arrows. Soon after, the Trollocs threw themselves into flight, and the Mirdrals were killed. Almost the entire shadowspawn force was destroyed, while the defenders' losses were minor. When the battle was over, the Children of the Light wanted to arrest Perrin, but the Two Rivers folk prevented them from doing so again. Ibara announced that Bornhold had broken the agreement, so he could not take Golden Eyes with him. Dain left the village and soon after, with the rest of the White Cloaks, left Two Rivers entirely. The grateful people of Emond's Field and the surrounding area named Ibara their lord and built a mansion for the new ruler and his wife. In addition, they created a coat of arms for Perrin over Ibara's objections and flew Manatherin flags, referring to the distant history of their region. Over the following weeks, refugees from Seanchan-occupied lands began arriving in the village, mainly from Tarabon, but also from Almoth Plain, Geldan and Arad Doman. Subsequently, the village turned into a walled town. At that time, Perrin, feeling the pull of the Ta'veren, went to Caemlyn accompanied by Fael, a trio of Isle and Loyal, and 300 archers. When the Children of the Light were banished from Two Rivers, an unexpected visitor arrived at Pedron Nile in the form of the Queen of Andor, Morghese Trakand. The Queen had come to ask him for help in reclaiming the throne of Andor, which had been seized from her by a certain Lord Gabriel. The Lord Captain Commander informed her that Gabriel had died at the hands of the Dragon Reborn, and that he would grant her request. However, in return, he required that the Children of the Light be exempt from the laws of Andor while residing in the lands of that kingdom. In order to protect Morghese, he hosted her in the royal palace on the outskirts of Amador. He did not move to help immediately, as another issue focused his attention. That issue was the Seanchan Empire, which had come to the western shores in the form of the Hyena, the Forerunners. Expecting an invasion, he wrote an order for all Children of the Light to assemble in Amador, but failed to issue the order. On Taisham 11th, Pedrom Nile was assassinated by his official spymaster, Omerna. He was immediately killed by Aemon Valda. Valda, however, was not a hero. He had begun conspiring with High Inquisitor Radam Asinawa to eliminate Nile. The conspiracy succeeded, as the men used Omerna to do just that. The conspiracy was due to Aemon Valda's ambition for claiming the highest rank, and Nile's dealings with the Aes Sedai of Saladar. Despite the fact that Children of the Light considered female channelers to be dark friends, Lord Captain Commander took no action to get rid of the sorceresses. That same day, Valda was appointed Lord Captain Commander. To consolidate his position, he manned the Fortress of the Light with men-at-arms loyal to himself. In addition, he ignored the information about Seanchan and did not send Nile's last order, but gathered an army for a slightly different purpose. Wanting to subjugate Morghese before leaving Amador, he forced her to sign a document recognizing his supremacy, after which he raped the queen. After this humiliation, he headed north, intending to deal with Mesema Dagar. Shienaran, after separating from Warrain's group during the pursuit of Rand to Stone of Tyr, appointed himself Prophet of the Dragon, gathering around himself an army of outcasts who, under the pretext of fighting under the Lord Dragon, sowed terror in the territories of the Kingdom of Gildan. When Emond Valda left the Fortress of the Light to defeat the Prophet, a night attack by Seanchan forces fell on the fortress. When the fortress, as well as the capital of Amadicia itself, fell, Valda moved at the head of the Children of the Light and the Kingdom's forces, led by King Ailron, to retake Amador. Near the town of Jeremel, the two armies met, and a battle ensued, won by the invaders, mainly due to their ability to use the One power to do so. After the battle, the victors appointed a new king to rule on their behalf, as King Ailron died in battle, and entered into an alliance with the Children of the Light. This decision did not please many Whitecloaks, including Captain Galadedrej Damodred. He challenged the Lord Captain Commander to a duel called the Trial Beneath the Light, in which he defeated Valda. This victory resulted in other Whitecloaks naming him Lord Captain Commander. The new commander of the Whitecloaks was to chart a new course for the Children of the Light, but the animosity they had for Perrin was to remain. However, Lord Goldeneyes was not resting on his laurels as Lord of the Two Rivers. The attraction of the Ta'veren had a reason, and Aybara was to play a significant role in the coming weeks and months because of it. To know what role Lord Goldeneyes has to play, ensure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.